2021 is a significant anniversary as it is 70 years since India opened its embassy in Dublin in 1951, and in the other direction, our first embassy in Asia was in New Delhi. So we go back a long way in those connections. 2021 has also seen both our countries take up seats on the UN Security Council for terms that will run for 2 years. That work isn't part of my remit as Minister of State in the financial services area, but I do know from the diplomats from the two countries and that they met recently to exchange views and to discuss the priorities of each of our countries has on the term of the Security Council, and Irish officials have come back saying that those meetings were very productive. So we look forward to working with you on that international body. Speaking of the UN, I think that the other shared interest that is to be mentioned is peacekeeping. And I just want to mention that, even though we all know, but it's important on a day like St. Patrick's Day to put it on the record. Both countries have contributions that each country can be proud of. India, as you know, is the 4th highest contributor to personnel in UN peacekeeping operations. More than 200,000 Indians have served in the 49 UN peacekeeping missions established around the world since 1948. For us too here in Ireland, even though we're a much smaller country, peacekeeping is a very proud tradition. And since June 1958, not a single day has passed without an Irish soldier being deployed under a UN flag somewhere around the world. I can actually say, literally my next door neighbour here in the street I live in, my village, has served on many of those missions, and she's one of the high-ranking soldiers. And it's good to see we have a good gender, an increasing and improving gender balance, and not just in all walks of life, but also in the defence forces. And my next door neighbour reminds me of that. It ain't easy in family life. You can be gone for 6 months at a time, and some people have been on missions multiple occasions over the years. So it is something I think that enhances the reputation of both India and Ireland internationally in the UN, that we are so active participants in peacekeeping missions. So let me finish this point on the relationship between our two countries by talking about the people. The Indian diaspora in Ireland is our largest Asian community, and they make a very positive contribution to our society and our economy, particularly, as you all know, in the healthcare sector. The latest estimate I have is that 20% of the nurses in the HSE are Indian, very, very high proportion, but members of the Indian community are also heavily involved in IT. And I think if we turn the clock back 12 months and we said so many people could have worked from home in Ireland, we would have said it isn't possible. We all believed the myth that we didn't have proper IT services around the country, we didn't have proper broadband. Of course it's not perfect, but I think people will have been surprised. We're all here today thanks to broadband, and so many meetings have happened in the last year thanks to broadband. We know many of them break down and there can be glitches and screens can freeze, but if you turn the clock back, I think the amount of successful meetings and the thousands of people that have been involved in broadband meetings and work from home, I think would astound anybody beyond all our expectations. And that's something that needs to be said. And it leads me on then to the other issue of the working from home, which is quite a big issue. And I would have spoken with the IDA in relation to broadband, and they have told us my knowledge, and I just leave as a thought. I did inquire some time ago about the level of broadband in India, and we were told that in lots of the major cities and campuses, the work that has been done in all those key areas have been almost uninterrupted because of the high quality of broadband. But probably to a bit like Ireland, when you go outside those major cities and the major towns, there are difficulties in broadband. So that's something we all have to work on, is improving our broadband in the more rural areas. But we think in most developed countries, the broadband has been quite satisfactory, if you know what I mean, in the major urban areas. And it has facilitated so many people working from home and productivity being maintained. So now let me turn to my own area of expertise, which includes the international financial services. Trade between our two countries in insurance is worth mentioning. The official statistics from the CSO for financial services, the most notable volume is trade in insurance. That might be a surprise, but the data covers trade in insurance itself. That is the insurance premium and any claims paid for the risk that was incurred. However, the value of the economic links in international financial services between our two countries is larger than the CSO tables because of the issue of outsourcing of activity by firms based in Ireland to entities in India. It's not just in the insurance sector, but also in other sectors in financial services like funds, like asset management, and like banking. So there is quite a lot of outsourcing activity there as well. And let me now turn away from the statistics and say a few words about my own work. The current whole of government strategy for the development of the sector out to 2025 is called Ireland for Finance. And that's my specific area of responsibility, Ireland for Finance. And the Minister for Finance launched that a number of years ago in 2019. And my work in the last 6 months since I came to office and while we're in office as part of the programme for government is to develop and enhance that. There are approximately 50,000 people working in Ireland in the financial services sector. It's a significant employer, but more importantly, they're good employers. And the payroll taxes and VAT and corporation tax that these companies pay is very significant. And the average payroll in these sectors would be double the payroll levels in we'll call it the domestic employment. So they're very high employment rates, the very high income rates and payroll rates and high taxes, which all has contributed to Ireland being able to continue to provide the services that we have done the last year, because sectors like that have kept, I suppose, the cash flowing into the exchequer. So in relation to that strategy, there are four key priorities: the operating environment, technology and innovation, talent and communications. I recently launched the action plan for 2021, and my priorities in that would be the issue of digital finance, regionalization, and diversity and sustainable finance. I've met a number of companies here working in Ireland in the financial services sector who have told me that they have over 60 nationalities on their books here in Dublin. These will be companies that might employ 1,800 people, 2,000 people, but they have over 60 nationalities. So that's very, very, very important in terms of diversity. And it adds to diversity of thought, and it does help us promote the sector around the world when we have people from so many different countries here. It is an attraction to new people coming in. So one of the key issues is technology and innovation. And the application of technology to financial services has a number of names. Some call it fintech, some people call it digital finance, but whatever name you choose, they both refer to essentially the same underlying set of development tools and processes. And what I will say to you on that is just a general remark. I'm off script now for a moment. I've met some of what I would have considered large financial organizations in recent months. Having met with them, I'm talking about the MasterCards of this world. I'm talking about Revolut of these world. And when you actually examine what they do, they're actually technology companies. And the product they actually sell happens to be finance. But they are more a technology company than a finance company. I met MasterCard the other day, and they're such a big company, there's nothing secret about talking about one of the bigger companies in the world. And we listened quite a bit. And at the end of the meeting, myself and Minister Donoghue concluded we were talking to a technology company, not a financial company. And that is the way of the world, because we all know how quickly new products are developed. Some people, I'm sure many of your families will have what we call the Revolut card at the moment. We've gone from a situation and nobody had one in Ireland a couple of years ago, and 1.3 million of our population now has a Revolut card. So, and that's all because of technology. So I just make that point. So really, technology is at the heart of the financial services, and that's why I refer to issues like fintech as the technical name for some people. Then the other burning issue is the whole question of sustainable finance. And this refers to the process of taking due account of environmental, social and governance issues when we're dealing with investments. We've passed laws now in Ireland, and the EU just in the last week has brought in some legislation saying that all investment opportunities by a regulated body must consider the issue of sustainable finance as an option in relation to their investment. They don't have to invest all their money in sustainable projects, but it must be on their checklist to consider it in the first place. So I think that is really going to be very important as we go along. And I will say that Europe is not alone in the challenge, and whether the firms in the European market or policymakers, legislators or regulators in the European Union or in each of our member states, and the issue of sustainable finance, I really think is going to be the topic of discussion for the next decade or two at least. All of this is a challenge that we must respond to effectively for the good of the planet, the good of our children and grandchildren, more importantly, and for the animals and plants that we share on the planet. So with that thought, I'm leaving you with 2 points really. One, sustainable finance is the way of future. Our grandchildren, let's hope they're having a conversation like this in 50 years' time, and they are not bemoaning that we didn't look after the future of the planet. And secondly, the issue of technology as front and foremost in everything got to do with the financial services sector. I think I nearly have to rebrand it as finance and technology at this point, but you get the point. Everything about banking is about technology at the moment. So with that thought, I will leave you. I will thank you for the opportunity to speak with you here this morning, and I wish you well with the rest of your conference. And above all, I wish you a happy St. Patrick's Day, and let's hope we can all meet on the streets this day next year. Thank you very much.